Hello, bowling fans. This is Dustin J. Markowitz coming to you taped, as always, from the gem along the Colorado River, Laughlin, Nevada, bringing you the 25th edition of Bowling Evolved. Joining me, as always, is my partner in crime. He's a 5-time PBA national champion, a millionaire on the PBA, and the man with the golden left hand. Ladies and gentlemen, on location in Brentwood, California, the one and only Eric Forkel.
Oh, that's me. I hear you. Hey, listen. Well, it's been so long since we've done this. I don't know what to say. But glad to be doing it again. Good to hear from you, my friend.
Well, hey, it's only been about a month, and you've been touring. I actually moved. I mean, this is good stuff. We're trying to relaunch the Bowling Evolved brand name.
I understand. I know we got some exciting things coming. We're going to try to make it bigger and better, and let's hope that our 25th show kicks it off the right way. I know we got a pretty exciting guest, that's for sure.
Absolutely. We are going to jump right into things because something that obviously bowlers talk about all the time is that there is so much camaraderie in bowling from all walks of life, be it doctors or sanitation workers or students or whatever the case is. Bowling is kind of a melting pot, and Eric, I'm sure you've seen it in your years out on tour. I mean, literally everyone who's anybody can come out and bowl.
Well, that's the great thing about our sport. It's recreation, it's high-end competition, it's a little bit of everything. It's birthday parties. It's as all-American as apple pie, in my opinion. I know they always talk about baseball, but I mean everybody bowls. Whether you're a high-end celebrity to just the average Joe, everyone bowls. So bowling is definitely for everyone. Absolutely,
and that's going to take us into our guest today. A very interesting situation has been approached to me, and I think this is fantastic. She's the head casting director for Sharp Entertainment. They are responsible for such shows as Man vs. Food, Doomsday Preppers, many others, Biography. She herself has been involved in many different projects, including working wardrobe for Sex and the City. She's a casting director for such video games like GTA 4, Red Dead Redemption, and she also owns OzDog Incorporated. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only CAZ ROSSON. CAZ, thank you so much for coming on the show this evening.
Oh, thank you guys so much for having me. This is awesome, and I am so excited to get to talk to you both. So,
CAZ, welcome to our little soiree of bowling talk.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Well, bowling, as we said, is one of those things that everyone can do. And, you sent me a message on Facebook that really caught my attention. And it seems that Sharp Entertainment is going to be looking for people for a new bowling show.
We are basically in development right now for a new potential TV show that basically calls for bowlers. And I'm also looking for a bowling alley as well. I think the show's going to really focus on the subculture of bowling and trying to kind of lift that curtain and reveal, what it is about bowling that is so extraordinary, especially, historically, and I think culturally as well. And one aspect of it is like you guys were saying before, it's like everybody from all walks of life participates in this sport. So right now, I'm really trying to find those bowlers who are out there in the world, who are on teams, totally into the sport at all levels, whether you're a pro or whether, you just really love the sport. You're not good at it, but if you could do it every day, you would anyway. And I've come across a few people so far, and it really is fascinating. There are teams of people like, they're all doctors, or there's a team of gentlemen who I came across, they're all actually undertakers. So it just seems like it's such a cool look into kind of like the culture of the sport through these teams. And I think ultimately what the show will be is, really focusing on a team or a couple of teams at one specific bowling alley, as kind of the season progresses. And I think it'll be a really fun way to kind of get into the technical side of bowling, all the technical terms that I'm completely ignorant of right now, but I'm learning. And also revealing the history as well, which I find fascinating. So yeah, right now that's kind of what I'm after is finding those people who are just fanatical about the sport.
Well, I would definitely say you came to the right place. We've been very fortunate to find ourselves a niche audience that loves bowling, and I think you're absolutely right. I believe that there's literally millions of people that bowl in this country, and everyone's got their own unique story. I mean, we've talked, Eric and I, just on here about just some stuff we've experienced, and I couldn't even fathom what a million different bowlers would have to tell you.
Yeah, yeah, and it really does seem too that in the people that I've spoken to thus far, everybody kind of has their own reason for loving the sport. Whether it's kind of that community feel, being on a team or being on a league, or whether people just love to compete, or it's the swag. Some people really love the technical aspects of it, but I don't have to tell you guys this. I mean, you're the pros. I am in the learning stages, but yeah, it's been really fun so far actually working on this project, and it's everything in me not to get out there and go bowling myself.
Well, if you're going to do this, you're going to have to experience it. You're going to have to
most definitely.
You got to get down there and you got to grab that house ball and grab those shoes, the rental shoes. Of course, if you get into a pro shop, go to a pro shop, they'll get you your own ball, get your own shoe, get your own bag. But if you want to really feel what the real deal, the original, the way it is, you go and get those goofy-looking rental shoes and grab that house ball and have yourself a beer, maybe get some pizza, and then throw that ball and try to knock over some pins. And it becomes, hopefully it becomes addicting. Hopefully it does,
Totally, yeah, and I think that's why this potential show could be really cool. We're also looking, in terms of location, we're really looking for those bowling alleys that kind of represent bowling, I think, almost like in a historical light, as much as kind of in a current, cultural setting. So I've been doing a little bit of research and kind of, doing some preliminary reaching out to some of the kind of historically significant bowling alleys, and it's been pretty cool. So yeah.
Well, I do know that I believe the oldest bowling lanes are in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. They're underneath a bar. Back in the day when they had all these bars, people would go downstairs and they would just bowl. Matter of fact, the PPA, the Professional Bowlers Association, they did a piece on that a few weeks ago. I don't know if you saw it, Dustin, with Parker.
Yes, it was very good.
That's technically, from what I understand, that's the oldest bowling lane or lanes ever, or in the country. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, you've got your most modern facility. You got your most modern facilities. Those are all over the place. Sure. So there is quite the gamut from one to the other. You got your mom and pop 10 lane places, and you've got state of the art 72 lane bowling centers. So if you could really, you could just go from one end to the other. It's unbelievable.
Totally. Yeah, and and that's why I am totally excited and open to talking to anyone, who's fanatical about the sport, because I think, there's just kind of so many ways to look into that microscope and really kind of understand the sport as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We were actually discussing on many of our shows in the past. Eric and I have kind of traveled around a little bit. Eric much more than myself, but you literally see just these, from what we call dungeons, these 50s relics of bowling alleys to, as Eric said, these modern marvels of bowling centers. I know, at least in my hometown of Laughlin, the bowling center has actually become somewhat of a center of the community, because it is the one sport that everyone's involved with. They literally have 1,000 league bowlers that go through there, not to mention attracting people because it's a resort town. Eric being in Las Vegas, of course, being the mecca of bowling, if you will. It's amazing how the community of bowling has really centered everyone around it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also, just in doing the research that I've done, obviously we're in the off season, so it's just kind of been interesting to kind of explore who's still out there, who's still bowling at the local bowling alley versus, who's traveling on tournaments and who, takes off for the summer, and it really does seem like, everybody's involved in some level, especially in those kind of smaller towns where, the bowling alley is kind of the place where people go in the winter because, maybe it's like, I spoke to someone in North Dakota who said, if you're not bowling in the winter, you're hunting. It's one or the other.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, it's definitely been really interesting and kind of eye-opening. I was unaware of how, how all-encompassing it really is, so.
Obviously, if you live on the West Coast, bowling is much more year-round because you don't have the harsh winters. You've got you've got some warm summers, but people bowl. You have your league. You have your winter leagues, and you obviously have your summer league. But I know back east or in the Midwest, when it's the summertime, people want to be outdoors. They don't want to be in a bowling center. They want to enjoy the warm weather. Now, obviously, in the wintertime, when it's 20 below outside and 5 feet of snow, that's when the bowling season really gets kicked and gets going. But out on the West Coast, it's a little bit different mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting. It's just a different way. It's all the same game, but people play it a little more year-round because they don't have to deal with the elements, of course.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do it professionally, like I did when I was younger, and I'm doing a little bit now as a senior because they do have a senior tour, that's another part of it as well. For instance, tomorrow I get to bowl in a Pro-Am here in Brentwood, and I'll be bowling. The amateurs come bowl with us as pros, and there's a lot of socializing, a lot of laughs, a lot of critiquing, a lot of helping them, and it's kind of like a party to kind of kick the tournament off.
Sure.
And that's kind of a cool,
so cool.
a very cool thing. Very cool.
Yeah. I love that. I think the camaraderie and also the process of the tournaments and just being on the league in general, I think is really, really interesting. And I think especially in finding people who just absolutely love the sport. I mean, I'm sure so many really fun things come with it. Of course, I would absolutely love to find somebody who maybe their house is almost like a museum to bowling because they're so into the history of it, or maybe
they're out there. They are out there. It's there. I've in the past I've come across it. I've seen it when we bowled in Detroit. There's a few people there that are just a little crazy over their bowling. They've got basically a shrine at home of. They'll take bowling balls and they'll put them in their garden and they'll use them to decorate the garden. I mean, you have no idea. I've seen all kinds of cool things that are just like, wow.
And the memorabilia, Eric. The memorabilia that people get, it's amazing. Bowling clocks, bowling watches, bowling this, bowling that. It's incredible. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's probably there's got to be some places you can definitely look to find that. I know it's out there because there are people who are just they're just. And a lot of times it happens to be women. I mean, they love getting together with their friends and going bowling, whether they're older or not. It becomes a social gathering, and they travel. They'll go bowl the national women's tournaments, and it's like a planned event every year, and they don't miss it. And some people go 50, 60 years. They give out awards for these people who've done it for 50, 60 years, going to this annual tournament, and it's just amazing the dedication. That people put into it because they love it so much.
That's so cool. I would absolutely love to find folks who, who are into the sport at that level for sure. And, it's like, I would love to find a team of women, especially, if it's like maybe they're all moms and this is kind of the one thing that they do just to kind of get away. And they're so good at it that they actually beat all the guys at the, in the tournament, So yeah, I am super excited to be working on this project and being able to talk to the people that I have been able to talk to, and for sure, yeah, any people that absolutely love the sport should definitely reach out to me, because I think this is going to be really fun.
Well, let me ask you a question then. Sorry. Go ahead, Eric.
No, go ahead, Dustin.
Oh,
go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, so now, of course, a guy like me and a guy like Eric, I mean, we may want to be the next TV stars. What do you think, Eric? We could be reality show sensations, right?
I've bowled for 15 years on the Pro Tour and done other things in bowling. It's been one big reality thing for me. So I think, you know what I mean? It would just be a continuation of what normally is. Yeah. But I think we would have a lot of interesting stories, and I don't know where that would go, but I know we have a lot of knowledge, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And I do want to throw this out there. So let's say a group like Eric and myself, or any bowler out there, wants to throw their name into the hat and get some information. How would they go about contacting you?
Well, they can contact me a number of ways. The first way, you can actually go to the Sharp website and check us out, look at the shows that we do, Man vs. Food, Preppers, Couponers, Call the Wild Man, all that kind of fun stuff. We're at www.sharpentertainment.com, and there are multiple ways to reach out, and I actually receive all of those emails. Or if you just call our office, you can ask for me. But also, you can email me directly. My email is CAZ@sharpentertainment.com, and my name is actually spelled CAZ, C for candy, A for aardvark, Z for zebra, @sharpentertainment.com. Or you can even just call me, 646-688-7908. And I'm pretty much at my desk 24/7. So yeah, I would be so happy to talk to anyone, who's involved in the sport, at kind of the fanatical level. So for sure. And I'm obviously more than happy to really take the time and, answer questions and whatever, because I know TV, sometimes people find it a little intimidating, but rest assured, we make some pretty awesome shows. And I think, this one in particular, I've been having so much fun with, and I think it's going to be a really fun project for sure.
How is the show going to be? Like, is it going to be a weekly episodical? Is it going to be every now and then? Is it a continuing saga? Do you already have a game plan on that?
Well, it's still in development right now, but obviously our hope would be, that it would be a weekly episodic. You never know. Sometimes these things turn into specials. Sometimes, it turns into something else. But, that's kind of our hope right now, is that it's a series.
Yeah, I always thought it'd be very interesting, too, if it ever got to the point where it really took off, to kind of have someone that would go from center to center, kind of like Man vs. Food, where he goes from city to city. Because, literally every city that has a bowling center has a story. They have people that are doing different things to help the sport. I know, like I said, Vegas, you have people promoting the game. You have people in Florida. You have people in Laughlin. You have people all over the place. I don't know. I just always thought that'd be really neat to see all the different stories throughout the U.S.
Totally, yeah. And I think, even if we are basing, the potential show in one particular bowling alley, I still think there's going to be a lot of different and kind of fun opportunities to bring in different folks, or to travel, maybe follow that team or teams traveling to a tournament, so that, we're kind of covering even more. So I think, I think there's going to be some opportunities to really kind of get out into the community, once we really get going.
Sure. Well, I know for me, and I'm sure for Eric, that we're very excited to see this take off. I mean, we've been all about bowling yesterday, bowling today, and bowling tomorrow, and we do everything we can to promote the sport, be it, on the local level or on the international level. So on behalf of bowlers everywhere, thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you, guys. And I am so excited that you let me join you on this podcast. Thank you so much. This has been great.
Yeah, I think it's a cool project. I think it's got a lot of potential because I know I know I got a million stories, and I know Dustin, he's a lot younger than me, but he's got a bunch of stories. And if we've got stories, guess what? Other people have stories too.
Yeah.
Just to something you could definitely laugh at. I always think that people who live near water, they probably find a lot of things to do with their bowling balls if they get a little agitated. They have a bad night. They have a bad night of bowling in that bridge on the way home. They just kind of stop, pull over, and bang, there goes all the equipment right into the river or any kind of water. I've heard stories about that in the past from friends of mine who actually bowl for a living. So I'm pretty sure that kind of stuff still continues. And I've seen some interesting things through the years. So there's just probably a million stories out there, and you're going to have your work cut out putting them all together.
Awesome. Yeah, fingers crossed. That sounds great. And yeah, it's been really fun so far talking to folks and kind of hearing their stories. But I would absolutely love to find the folks that align with some of those examples that you just gave. That sounds great.
Yep. Well, there we go.
If by chance, I don't know, you're going to get to come out to this part of the country?
Yeah, what I'm hoping is that I'm going to be able to kind of do a road trip and hit some of the kind of hotbeds of bowling across the country. I think if I do that, it's probably going to be in the next couple of weeks, and I may end up in Nevada. So, okay. I'm happy to be able to arrange that and get out there myself so that I can actually meet folks in person.
Well, there we go.
Well, that's when we would have to. That would be the time for us to all get together and maybe have dinner and sit down and talk about the project. That'd be fantastic.
I offered that to her off the air. I might even have to get her a bowling ball and some shoes. We have to get her out the lanes, Eric.
We can do that. Absolutely, we can do that.
Awesome.
Dustin has access in Laughlin, and I've got a few people here in Vegas, so you're covered either way. You just gotta get our schedules together, and I think that'll be way cool.
Absolutely.
I'm in.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen,
all right.
That's going to take us into our first break. Don't forget, check out Sharp Entertainment on their website or any of the ways CAZ has told you. When we come back, there's going to be more from Bowling Evolved, including some more big announcements, and, of course, Eric's trip now that he's back out on the senior tour. Welcome back, bowling fans. I got to say, Eric, it was really great having her on the show. This is kind of a dream. I mean, we've been preaching about trying to get bowling mainstream. Obviously, Bowling Evolved is about getting the word out about bowling and helping promote the sport or game or whatever you want to call it. And I'll tell you, this seems like it might be something special.
Yeah, the fact that they want to actually do something and make a show out of it, a program that is for the average person to get involved with and kind of show maybe the history of bowling and what the average person does with it and why do they bowl league and what they do with it, why do they go to tournaments and why do they love competing, what's the thrill of throwing that round object, that 10 round objects and how they fall, and she seems quite excited over it, and if they're ready to put it together, hopefully we can help them along the way, give them some good information.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if we could be involved in any way, that would be fantastic. And if not, I'm just happy to be able to help get the word out. And, as we said, there's millions of stories out there. I know you have your stories from the tour. I know I have my stories as a tournament coordinator. And it's amazing to think what the potential of this thing could be.
Yeah, because the stories are plentiful, and because like most everybody bowls. It's like probably the number one recreational thing that people do. If I had to guess, it's definitely up there. And there's no reason why it couldn't be quite the entertaining show.
Yep, absolutely.
Sure.
I do believe it's still the number one participatory sport in the United States. I'd have to double check.
I believe so.
But
and it doesn't do too bad over the world either.
No.
I mean, everybody bowls, and there's definitely something to it. And maybe they can put together a pretty interesting show that, speaking of shows, that Doomsday Prepper show, I thought that was kind of obscure and kind of cool at the same time. It was very unique. These people are really serious about prepping for the end of the times and the things that they do. And we watch that show all the time, and I'm fascinated by it. So who knows? Maybe I would actually be fascinated by the bowling show.
Absolutely. I was going to say, I'm a big fan of man versus food, so this works out well. Once again, guys, check out Sharp Entertainment's website and everything that they do. But let's move on to something that I think is also very unique. Obviously, we've taken a little bit of time off from doing the show. We've been talking about revamping a lot of things, and I want to go over a couple of the reasons why we took some time off, including one very big reason. Mr. Forkel, you are back out bowling on the PBA 50 Tour.
Well, I didn't expect it to come around, but I'm trying to take advantage of the situation when it's in my backyard. And I've been busy the last month. I've been bowling a lot of things, and it's been fun. It's been entertaining as usual, and it's the competition is great. The players are fantastic, and it's always nice to compete against the greats.
Well, you've had a lot of success. Just kind of doing a quick rundown here. You bowled a couple regional events leading up, made match play, and obviously you made the TV finals of the U.S. Open, which was on PBA Extra Frame. You finished third. Great showing, coming from 24th in qualifying and battling your way up to the second seed for the show. And then, of course, you made the second round of match play in the Masters. You know what, Eric? You were one of the featured matches as well, I should say, on Bowl.com. I think you were very impressive out there. I think you turned a lot of heads, and as John Petragula said when he was announcing your match, for a guy that hasn't really done this full time anymore, you really impressed a lot of people.
Well, sometimes it takes a little bit to kickstart the old gears, and then it kind of feels like old hat again. But I don't have the opportunity right now to play on the tour full time, the senior tour that is. And when it came into my backyard, I did have the opportunity to go. And again, those competitive juices start flowing again, and you kind of rely on all your stuff from the past to get you through. And I've definitely had some good moments, and it's always great to bowl against these people that I used to compete against back in the 90s. That's the beauty of the PBA 50 Senior Tour. It's because all the stars of the I'd say the 80s and 90s, well, guess what? They're still Hall of Famers and superstars now. Mm-hmm. So they're older, but their skills are pretty much the same. That's the amazing part about them. For instance, Pete Weber won the Senior Masters this past week. Well, a few months back, he won the, I think, what was it, TSC, right? Did he win the TSC?
Yes, he did. Oldest won the win.
So, his skills are still off the chart, and he's still great, beyond great. And you got Walter and him and Wayne Webb and all these guys, and it's really cool to be in the locker room with these guys again and actually bowling against them again. And, to take your Amleto, of course, Amleto Monticelli, who won the Senior U.S. Open. It's great to compete against them once more. It really is.
Well, I'll tell you, I was very impressed watching you bowl, and I kind of wanted to ask you a couple questions. And one thing I will say, the ratings and the people watching these senior events were very impressive. I was very surprised by the amount of people that were talking about and following, considering this was not a regularly televised event. These were things that were covered on Bowl.com and PBA Extra Frame. But let's talk about the U.S. Open. You very tough pattern. You qualified 24th. Obviously battled your way onto the TV show. Kind of walk us through that. I mean, what adjustments did you make? What did you find of the shot? And how did things go down, especially, obviously, you had a little trouble on the actual TV show itself. What was kind of going through your head at that time?
Well, I'll try to make it short and sweet. Obviously, when you bowl the Senior U.S. Open, they try to make the lanes more challenging. The oil ratio was like 2-to-1. I don't think it was 3-to-1. I'm pretty sure it was 2-to-1, which means it was pretty flat. So the topography of the bowling center really comes up. There's no ultimate angle to play. Everyone's playing a different angle, and that's why, in general, the scores are on the low side. 220 is a great game. 215, 220, 230, those are excellent games. In most house conditions and most league shots, that's par. So just to kind of show you the difference, it was phenomenal. And I've always been pretty good in the majors, at least I was back in the day. And I kind of caught a little bit of that magic at the Open. And I was able to weave my way into the top 24, and I was fortunate to grab that last spot. And when you qualify 24th, the mentality is you got nowhere to go but up. You can't get any lower. You can't get any lower. So it just changes your mental aspect, and maybe there's less tension. I always thought the tension, the pressure is getting to the finals, and once you're in the finals, it's almost like a relief because you beat. They had almost 200 entries, and you got into the top 24. And now it's almost kind of like the fun part. I always enjoyed round robin match play. I always felt that that's the ultimate way that the game should be played at this level. I don't believe in the other format, but I know that's somewhat popular as well. I like the round robin. I think that's just a great way to do it. And I knew I was going to bowl everybody once, and because the scores were so low, if I catch a run, you could go from 24th to 4th in a heartbeat. And that evening when we started that first round of match play, I believe I went 7-1, and I went from like 24th to like 6th. And it was I just caught a great run, and I just found my swing, found my game, found the correct, made the right moves, caught the right people, and I made a tremendous jump. And so when we came back the next day, I was right in the thick of things, and it was really exciting. And I was fortunate to qualify second, and then they took the top 4, and then they stripped and re-oiled the lanes again. And on the show, they were even more challenging. And it had been a while since I'd been in that position, and I made a couple bad shots here and there. And I did pick up a pretty interesting split, though, that was exciting.
Yes, you did.
I had Ron bowled a great game, and he's a great player, and he had a pretty good look. I mean, he looked like he had a nice little shot out there that he had, and my shot was okay, but it was nothing. I had to be really perfect, and under all that pressure at that moment, I just couldn't be as perfect as I needed to be. And I think I shot 180, and he had like 2-1, and he went on to finish second against Amleto. He left a ring in 10 to actually lose.
Yep.
So it was interesting. It was a little bit of a down finish, but I have to look at the overall situation was quite good.
Well, and also you made a nice little payday, which actually moved you up to 36th on the all-time money list for the PBA.
Yeah, every time I get a check in the PBA, or every time I cash in any PBA event, it always adds to my career earnings, which is always kind of fun. All I'm saying is the senior players are very, very good, and I just hope that they can develop something for them down the road. There's a couple projects that are in the makings, maybe another group. I know Ron Moore has something that he's getting involved with, along with Kenny Parks. They're putting something together that's going to help senior players out if they want to try to maybe further their career once they get past 50. Because right now, to be honest with you, once you get to 50, there's not a lot that you can play for and actually make a living. Most of the guys who bowl the senior tour, they're retired. They have their pensions. They're out there just to have a good time, bowl a little bit, and play some golf. It's a different mentality. But maybe they could actually create something for seniors who actually could be competitive and maybe, have a second career, so to speak. People who worked their whole life, they never had a chance to bowl for a living. Maybe they could actually play on both these tours if the other one does happen, and actually, have some serious competition on 2 tours. There's all kinds of things out there right now, and hopefully it'll happen. That'd be great.
Absolutely. I mean, and again, something else I'd like to mention, you also bowled in the Senior Masters, as we discussed, and you did very well in that. A funny little anecdote, I was telling you a little bit off the air, you were one of the featured matches during the first round, not the main match, but one of the 3 they were showing. And then they were talking about you when you were bowling Amleto, which very close match, obviously. But you had several people that were cheering for you to take out Amleto, as I was shamelessly plugging Bowling Evolved, of course, in the chat room.
There's nothing wrong with a shameless plug. I like that.
Yeah. And I found that really interesting. That here we are several years later, and of course, you had a great run in the '90s, and you still have a lot of fans out there. I was jokingly calling them Forkalites that were cheering you on to beat what a lot of people consider one of the most popular bowlers in PBA history.
Well, and any time you bowl against Amleto, you have to bowl a great match, and I actually did bowl a very, very good match. I had like 2 mistakes, in 36 shots. I made 2 errors, and it cost me. It's 728 to 731. Quite the good match, and the match could go either way. It was a high-scoring match we caught a pair that both of us could strike a little bit on because matches around us, nobody's shooting anything. And he's so good in the 10th frame, and I gave him that opening by making a mistake in the 9th frame. And then I left the 7th in and struck in the 10th, and he had to double to beat me. And when you give the Hall of Famers the chance, when the sharks smell blood, most of the time they're going to attack. And he did his job. He doubled in the 10th, and he dropped me into the losers bracket. And then, unfortunately, I didn't recover properly mentally after that match, and I didn't bowl a very good match, and I lost, and then I was out of the tournament, which is, it happens sometimes. But, again, another challenging condition there. They were tough, and back-to-back tough weeks, and both times I did well. So I've always had a history of bowling well in the tougher environment, so it didn't surprise me. I was just a little surprised that the match with Amleto was so close, and it was just, I was going punch to punch with a Hall of Famer, one of the greatest of all time, and that was really something because he still bowls quite a bit. He still bowls both tours, and so just to mix it up with him again to get the chance was really kind of interesting, and it was fun, and it was a good match. It could have went either way. And so those 2 weeks were really good. And I just think there's a lot of senior players out there who people still enjoy watching because they remember them from the 80s and the 90s. They can familiarize with them. They know them. They're comfortable. They're like it's like warm apple pie. They know them. They remember them from the days when it was on ABC. When it was the lead-in for Wild World of Sports. They know the names. They know the faces. The current tour, the guys are great. They know a lot of them as well, but it's a different demographic. It's a different type of people who it's a different game. Really, it's played in a different way. I think most people can relate more to how the older guys bowl. The guys who were great in the 80s and 90s, they can just relate to them better. I just have that feeling. I think maybe the young kids can relate to the Belmontes and the Barnes and all the guys, the two-handed players and the Oscus and all that. But I think the older crowd, I still think they like the contemporary way to play the game.
Sure. Well, I do want to ask one question, and I found this kind of interesting that was brought up during your match in the U.S. Open that John Petraglia was talking about, and I didn't necessarily agree with him fully, but I kind of wanted your take. He was talking about your style of play, obviously being, a stroker and manipulating the lane. He was talking about how your style of game is a dying breed, because of the new power game, which, we've talked about how the power player obviously has a distinct advantage to be able to overpower a lane, but I don't know if I would call a stroker necessarily a dying breed. I think that obviously by qualifying second, you're able to do something that some of these power players out there weren't able to do. So would you agree with that assessment, or do you think that there still is room for strokers in today's game?
Well, I'm going to agree with him on the aspect of on the senior tour, or you could say senior bowling. I would think that if you're a stroker and you're very good at what you do, I think you can play all day long. Now, if you were to take that, like someone like myself, and put it on the regular tour, in that environment of the guys just go it really hard with the two-handed, the revs, and the environment that they put out there, it kind of induces that type of environment. So he could be his assumption of saying that if you stroke the ball or the tweener or the in-between guy, it has a little more trouble out on that tour. And there's some validity to that. That makes sense to me. But again, there's always exceptions to the rule, especially on the left side of the lane. It's a different environment regardless. But I think there's always exceptions to the rule. I mean, there's quite a few guys out there on the regular tour who are right-handed, who kind of are in between. They're a little bit in between in their game, and they can still do quite well. But it's obvious the two-handed players, the Belmontes, the Palermos, all those guys with all the revs and the speed, the game is kind of geared more towards their style, and I just think that's because of the environment that's created. I'm just saying, I think that's the way they dress the lanes, and it enhances their style, and they take full advantage of it. I mean, when their ball hits the pins, it's almost not fair. It's almost ridiculous.
Sure.
You know, you won't see that on the senior. It's a different environment. It's the environment of 20 years ago, 25 years ago. So someone with a game like myself, let's say, or a Randy Peterson on the right, or, you know, a Ron Moore or Walter Ray, or almost even, you know, all these guys. It would be hard to call Pete Weber a cranker now. He's kind of a tweener, to be honest with you. He used to be back in the day, but compared to those guys now, Weber, he don't hook the ball nowhere near as much as those guys. And look at how great, well, he won the TSC. That's how great he is. So there's still niches for people, and I think it's on your greatness, because today's equipment is so good that you don't need a ton of power behind it. And I think if you put the two-handed players have an advantage, and maybe the guys who are really straight might have somewhat of an advantage, and the guys in the middle, they really have to be creative with not only with their hand positioning, but their choice of equipment is off the chart. It's beyond ridiculous. You have to really know your stuff.
Sure.
And so I will agree with Johnny to a certain degree, and I think that's the point he was trying to make. If he was distinctly talking about the senior tour, then I would think then that's not true, because it's proven. But if it was talking about the regular tour, to me, that tour is played at a little bit different speed. But then again, if you look at someone like Mika Koivuniemen, he's not a power player. He's kind of an in-between player in my book. He doesn't hook it a ton, and he doesn't throw it dead straight. He's kind of in the middle, and look at how well and great he has done. So there's always exceptions to the rule, you know, always.
Well, certainly seems like there is always going to be room for a pure stroker, at least in my opinion. But, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to take us into our second break. When we come back, we're going to discuss the new upcoming changes to bowlingevolved.com, including what you can do to help support Bowling Evolved. Welcome back, bowling fans. Well, Eric, we are coming towards the conclusion of our 25th episode spectacular. I think it's been very interesting. Obviously, we are going to be back doing the show now on a little bit more regular basis. Obviously, you're in Brentwood, though, doing your PBA 50 stop. But I'll tell you, we're going to have a lot of very cool things coming up.
Yeah, I think we're going to be busy. It'll be nice to have the show running again. If not weekly episodically, maybe every other week, but we can do it, get back in the swing of things, so to speak, and with all the other things you've got coming, it should be good. I mean, yeah, there's quite a few things to talk about, quite a lot of current events to talk about.
Absolutely. I do want to go over a few things real fast. First and foremost, we have officially signed our contract with the Colorado River United States Bowling Congress. Bowling Evolved will actually be not only hosting the CRUSBC on our website, but we'll be taking over the 4 CRUSBC events that are hosted in Laughlin, which, Eric, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know of any other independent group that actually handles association tournaments.
That's very cool, like I said, and I think, I'm pretty sure you'll do a nice job with that, so they made a good choice there.
Well, thank you very much. Of course, you're going to be coming down to help me get some of the stuff off the ground, correct?
Absolutely. I can come down and help, and we can do what we got to do. I'm always there for you.
Yeah. Well, that's why I consider you the co-host with the most, my friend.
Oh boy. Okay. As long as I'm not the co-hostess, that's fine. That's fine. I don't want to be the co-hostess with the mostest.
Yeah,
I'll be the co-host. That's fine.
That's obviously one really big thing coming up. Something else, Bowling Evolved, as I mentioned to the fans before, there is things that you guys can do to help the show. There's no doubt that it takes time and it takes finances to do a talk show, and you know, we've been very happy to do this kind of grassroots program, but I think we are at a point now where realistically, I would like to take Bowling Evolved to a new level, and Eric, you and I have talked about this at length.
No, I think we really need to evolve. I mean, we need to step this thing up, and that'll take some finances. And you've got a program or some ideas that are going to help us with that. And maybe we can do some more cool stuff. We might be able to do some live shows, maybe get some live call-ins. I mean, anything's possible with the right finances.
Absolutely, and that's why we are officially announcing that bowlingevolved.com will be having a crowdfunding campaign that will be launching sometime in the middle of next month. Basically, what this is going to be about, we are going to be offering certain incentives for people to donate some money to the show and to hopefully allow us to do what you guys have written into us about. I mean, we've had many emails and comments and Facebook posts about what they wanted to see on the show. You know, they wanted more video, they wanted more live shows, they wanted more demonstrations. Unfortunately, realism has to set in. This takes time and it does take money. And although this is a labor of love for Eric and myself, and we're not looking to be making huge profits by any sense of the imagination. I don't know if we've made any profit so far.
No, there's no profit. We do this because we enjoy it.
Yeah. But we do love it, and we want to be able to offer those things to you guys and to take Bowling Evolved to that next level. In order to do that, we are going to need some better equipment. We're going to need some travel expenses, things of that nature, and that's where you guys are going to come in. We hope that, you will be willing to donate, $5 of your time to help promote a show. And in exchange, obviously, we'll have things to give away. We would love to do glossies, equipment, whatever giveaways that we can do. That will be part of this crowdfunding idea. And realistically, we want to take Bowling Evolved to the next level to be the show you guys want to see.
Yeah, I think we talked about it. There's so many things we can do to it if we can get into a studio and maybe get have some different equipment to use, and there's all kinds of. We have a contact in Vegas that might be able to help us out with we spoke to before. So there is some things we can do to make this a better show and a more popular show, hopefully. What we do now is pretty cool, but it's kind of really grassroots, and it's really kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel, so to speak, to put this thing together. And I think with a few more bells and whistles, I think we can do some pretty cool things. And I'm still not counting out that show where people can call in and we can do a live chat and ask questions and discuss things live. I think that would be the greatest.
That's, ultimately, I would love to see that. I mean, I think it would be so fantastic to be able to do something like Bowl.com does where, they stream a show and you have a chat room and you could actually interact. I mean, I would have no problem whatsoever with if we had a guest on the show and fans were willing to write in and they wanted to ask their questions. If we were able to do a live show once a week, I mean, again, these are all things that Bowling Evolved wants to do. I mean, I know I get excited just thinking about it because that's really the dream. That's where we want to go.
Exactly, and I think it's very possible. And again, we can tap some of our resources in Vegas to get us into a better position to do some stuff. And I know you've spoken to that person, as have I. Mm-hmm. And maybe we can come up with something,
Absolutely. And for every donator, it would realistically be a producer to take Bowling Evolved to the next level, and we will find ways to make it well worth your while. I mean, that's all I can really say. When we actually launch our Kickstarter campaign, we will have more information on what we're going to be offering, what kind of incentives there's going to be. And the biggest incentive, of course, is going to be, Eric and my undying gratitude because, again, this is about bowling. We are looking to promote, just like CAZ with the new show coming up and, like everyone else out there promoting bowling. That's what we want to do. I mean, it's not about the money. It's not about the fame. It's not about the glory. It's about the sport, or game if you're Eric.
Yeah, well, let's see. The last 2 weeks that I've competed, it's definitely been a sport. I bowled on some pretty tough conditions and up against the best players in the world, and that's really when it turns into a very, very difficult, challenging, competitive sport. There ain't no doubt about it. And and that's where you could separate the two. And by getting the chance to compete again in that environment, it sheds new light on the way I think about this whole thing, and it gives me more perspective, which is always good because there's obviously two sides to the whole story, and it was definitely a competitive sport the last 2 weeks. There's no doubt about it.
I just hope when I'm 52 years of age that I'm going to be able to bowl 100 games in a couple weeks because right now I bowl 3 games a week and I feel like I'm falling apart already. So,
well, I'll tell you what, and I'm gonna give you my little secret here. I've got a secret, and I'm gonna I'm going to break the secret. Here it is. I'm going to tell you how this has come about, that this old guy at 52 can bowl all these games. About 2-3 months ago, my wife and I, we started mountain bike riding. I've been doing a lot of mountain bike riding and just been working on my legs, basically, and conditioning. And I tell you what, it's the last month or last 3 weeks that I bowled so much, I think it's paid dividends. It obviously doesn't make you bowl good, but it allows you to be competitive, to bowl, to put the amount of games in that you need to compete. And I know over the last 2 weeks I bowled well over 150, 200 games. So I bowled a lot of games. And overall, my body doesn't feel too bad. 3-4 months ago, I probably couldn't do this. So I owe a lot to my 3-4 times a week riding around up in the hills and conditioning the legs. And I think in bowling especially, if you're going to be a good player, you know, guys do different things, but I really think having strong legs and a strong back, and I think that it could only help. And I know for myself, the mountain bike riding has really helped me tremendously. And besides that, it's fun. we have a good time with it, and it's great cardio, and it's really good to strengthen your legs. And when you got good wheels and you got good cardio, you could bowl all day, and even in a stressful situation, and you could just handle it. So I give a lot of my credit to that.
Well, I believe a wise man once told me on this show that he's not as good as he once was, but he could be as good once as he ever was.
That's correct. I don't know who that wise man was, but it sure as heck couldn't have been me. But I like I said, I've definitely had my moments these last couple of weeks where I've had flashes of the past that were really kind of exciting. And hopefully this week up here in Brentwood, I can reach back in time a little bit and have a little more fun. But overall, things are rolling along, so to speak, and we're doing well. And I can't say enough about riding that bike. You go to the gym, you just sit on a bike, and that's really boring. But when you actually can get out, even though it's a little warm, of course, but you know we're working through that. When you can get out and actually work and ride around and see some of the, you know, just get out there and it's unbelievable what it does to you mentally and what it does to you physically when you bowl, especially in this environment. So I would highly recommend it to anybody who wants to be competitive and strengthen up those legs. I mean, you know, look at Amleto. He's probably in the best shape of any bowler probably on the planet, so to speak. And even though he's 51 or 50 years old, you know, there's no doubt, there's no big surprise that he would lead these tournaments because he's in such great shape physically. And Ron Moore's another one who does the 500 sit-ups a day, whatever. I'm just saying, a little way of doing it. And I think, especially for someone like you who's younger and you've got some issues, you got to find, if you really want to bowl and bowl for a long time, you have to find a way to condition your body to be able to take the wear and tear, because the better you bowl, the more games you bowl, and the more games you bowl, the more wear and tear you put on your body. So if you're going to put yourself in that position, you better be able to handle it. And I think finding some way to strengthen your body will help anyone to become a better bowler if that's what they want to do. So that would be my tip of the week: is don't be afraid to condition your body to help you to be a better player, and because they do go hand in hand. There's just no doubt about it. And even whether you're a senior player or whether you're a younger player, like yourself, same thing.
Well, I will say that I think that's great advice. And you know, I am still able to throw a few games here and there. I have had some health issues. One thing that I would like to add to that too, and it's just something that's helped me, has been the nutrition part of it. I'm actually finding that I'm drinking nutrition shakes that have helped me out with the vitamins and minerals. There's a little bit of sugar in them, which I don't have a problem with the sugar. But I'll tell you what, getting those vitamins and minerals, I've noticed a big difference in my energy as opposed to not having them, not taking anything. And I think that might be a big key for a lot of people too, having the proper nutrition to be able to go out there and compete.
Well, absolutely. Like I said, if you bowl 3 games a week, then obviously some of this stuff is not for that type of person. But if you want to be a competitive, like, tournament bowler, or someone who wants to bowl every day and have enjoyment out of it, you can't be hurting. You know, your body you have to be able to handle it, because there is wear and tear on the body. You're lifting a 14, 15, or even a 16-pound object. You're swinging it. You're walking with it. there is some wear and tear.
Sure.
And no matter what level you're at, whether it's professional level or amateur level or just a recreational player, if you want to be able to, people who are in a little bit better shape, I think actually it'd be easier for them to handle the bowling side of it. And especially when you get older, I think you have to work harder to get in shape, and especially if you want to be competitive. So I think for myself, it's definitely helped. It doesn't solve all the problems, but it definitely gives you a little bit of an edge in the amount of games that you can bowl, whereas you won't break down as fast. Let's say you can maintain longer stretches. And I bowled a ton of games in the last 2-3 weeks, and I know it's definitely helped. And that's what I recommend.
Well, that's great advice for all of our listeners. But, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to take us into the end of our show, our 25th episode. I'll tell you what, Eric, I can't believe we made it this far. It's kind of amazing to think.
Yeah, it's been a good run. Like I said, we had our little hiatus, and now we're back on. And I look forward to doing this again. And with all these exciting things coming down the pike, it could really be really exciting. Who knows? Who knows what we may have with, like I said, who knows what could come of it? Yeah. And sky's the limit, so to speak.
Yeah, the future is endless. And I do want to say that I think I am going to be healthy enough if we do both compete in that tournament in August we talked about off the air. I think I might try to give you a run for your money there, Eric.
Well, I would hope so. My God. If you're not going to show up and play the game, if you're not going to come ready, then don't come at all.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll have some more on that, the little challenge between your two favorite hosts here on Bowling Evolved. But for Eric Forkel, I've been Dustin J. Markowitz. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great night.
Good night.